I secretly bought a $1.2 million home. When I offered to lend it to my husband's parents for the weekend, they called saying, "There are strangers inside and we can't get in." I checked the camera and found my sister throwing a party with 20 of her friends, so I called 911. Yeah, my sister's overseas for work. She said I could use the place as much as I want. So, cheers to us. That voice belonged to my much younger 19-year-old sister, Nicole. The moment her flippant tone echoed from my smartphone speaker, mixed with the cheers of her friends, my blood ran cold. Overseas. I was sitting right then at a restaurant downtown, across from my completely oblivious husband, Wesley. This was live audio picked up by the security cameras in my brand new house. It had all started just minutes earlier with a single phone call from my mother-in-law. "Madison, something's wrong. The music is blasting so loudly it can be heard outside the house. Do you know what's going on?" It was supposed to be the brightest, happiest day of my life. The day I finally took possession of my dream home, bought with the $1.2 million I had scraped together over years of exhausting sacrifice. We had invited Wesley's parents to be the very first guests. While they relaxed inside, Wesley and I would burst in together and shout, "Surprise." It was supposed to be perfect, but the voice of my mother-in-law on the other end of the phone was filled not with joy, but with confusion. Prompted by her words, I discreetly opened the app under the table. Spread across the screen in front of me was a scene straight out of HLL. The living room was packed with sweaty strangers, and at the center of it all, Nicole was holding court like a queen. She hadn't just trespassed. She had erased my very existence and offered up my home, the crystallization of all my hard work, as if it were her own, handing it over to her friends without a second thought. Before anger even had a chance to surface, a cold, absolute sense of humiliation pierced straight through me. As Nicole's lie echoed over and over in my head, I swiped the screen with trembling fingers and switched to other camera feeds. Not just the living room, the kitchen, the area by the door leading to the backyard. Every single screen was filled with faces of young people I didn't recognize. They were opening my refrigerator like it belonged to them, sprawled out on my brand new sofa while wearing dirty shoes, a sofa I hadn't even used once. It was degrading. I hadn't sacrificed sleep night after night, or devoted every single weekend to side jobs just to see this. But what truly sent my anger to a boiling point was when I zoomed in on the camera pointed at the kitchen counter, lined up. There were not snacks, vodka, tequila, and piles of beer bottles, and worst of all, many of the people clinking glasses, including Nicole herself, were very clearly under 21. My sister was 19. This wasn't something that could be brushed off as simple trespassing or a noisy party. This was providing alcohol to minors. Underage drinking, multiple serious crimes were being committed in my house. This was no longer a party. It was a clear-cut crime scene. What if someone got alcohol poisoning? What if someone drove drunk and caused an accident? As the homeowner, part of that responsibility could come back to me. Nicole's reckless, self-centered behavior wasn't just putting me at risk. It could drag every minor there, their families, and even completely innocent strangers into a catastrophic situation. Any lingering affection I had for my blood-related sister vanished completely in that moment. She hadn't just defiled my dream. She fundamentally lacked any sense of responsibility to society. I lifted my head and turned to face Wesley, who was watching me with concern. There was nothing left to hide. The surprise had been ruined in the worst possible way. But right then, I needed him. "Wesley, listen to me." I placed the house keys I hadn't yet given him, on the table. "This was supposed to be your present, our new home. But right now, my sister has taken it over." I showed him the screen of my phone. Wesley stared at it in disbelief. A deep crease formed between his eyebrows, his expression slowly sinking into quiet fury. He took my hand and murmured in a low voice, "Madison, this isn't your fault." Those words gave me the strength to continue. "I'm calling the police. This isn't a family issue anymore. It's a crime." There was no hesitation left in my voice. I understood the weight of turning my own sister over to the police. I knew it could damage her future. But to prevent the far greater tragedy her actions could cause, there was no other choice. I wasn't foolish enough to misunderstand the meaning of what I was about to do, handing my own sister to the authorities. But if I looked the other way, something far worse would happen. And more than anything, I would lose myself. Wesley met my gaze and then nodded firmly. All right. Madison, you're right. I'm with you. I'll call my parents right now and tell them to explain everything as witnesses when the police arrive. They're already outside the house. They've seen exactly what's been going on. Those words felt like a strong hand reaching out to me in the darkness. I was not alone. There was someone by my side to fight this battle with me. Bolstered by that realization, I closed the smartphone screen, opened the call app, and tapped 911. The few seconds it took to connect to an operator stretched out like an eternity. 911, what's your emergency? The calm, professional voice echoed through my phone's speaker. I took a deep breath and spoke as steadily as I could. There is an incident. An unauthorized, large-scale party is happening at my home. The organizer is my sister, but I never gave her the keys. This is trespassing. I clearly stated my address, then continued. And most importantly, multiple minors are drinking alcohol. There's a large amount of alcohol in the kitchen, and everything is being recorded by the security cameras. The operator's response was swift. Understood. We'll dispatch patrol cars immediately. Please provide your name and contact information, and absolutely do not approach the scene. Stay in a safe location until officers arrive. I gave all the necessary information and ended the call. The noise of the restaurant felt like a distant, unreal world. I immediately reopened the security app. But this time I didn't just watch live footage, I activated the recording feature. Every camera angle was being saved in real time, both to the cloud and my phone. Nicole handing a beer to a friend. A boy, clearly underage, chugging directly from what looked like a vodka bottle. Someone is laughing as they knock something against my brand new wall. Each clip, each sound would serve as undeniable evidence proof that would leave no room for excuses like I didn't know or I didn't mean it. This digital record would be my only weapon speaking the truth without emotion or family loyalty interfering. I became, in a sense, a cold calculating machine, recording every act of folly unfolding on my screen. Outside, the restaurant night had fully fallen. Inside my smartphone, however, red and blue lights flashed violently, in stark contrast to the darkness outside. Less than 10 minutes after the call, 2 police cars silently slid up to my house. Through the security feed, I couldn't hear sirens echoing through the quiet neighborhood. Yet the flashing lights reflecting off nearby windows and wet asphalt signaled, ominously, the imminent, forceful intervention. Inside, the bass that had rattled the walls abruptly stopped, as if the power had been cut. The movements of the youths in the living room froze, and the intoxicated, exhilarated expressions on their faces vanished. Whispers of, "What's going on?" and "Is someone here?" seemed to fill the air. Then, someone glanced out the window and let out a short scream. At that moment, panic erupted among the uncoordinated. Some rushed toward the back door to escape. Others scrambled to pour alcohol down the kitchen sink. In the center of the chaos, Nicole stood frozen, dumbstruck. The blood drained from her face, and the queenly attitude she had carried moments ago was gone. She looked around for help, but her friends were too focused on saving themselves to meet her gaze. Finally, she seemed to grasp that the situation had completely slipped from her control, and that she would have to take full responsibility alone. A heavy knock rattled the door several times. The camera caught the figures of 2 sturdy police officers standing at the entrance. The door was opened by Nicole herself. Still trying to muster some final bravado, she asked in a trembling voice, "Can I help you? We received noise complaints from neighbors. Are you responsible for this house?" The officer's tone was calm yet authoritative. Nicole stammered out, well, it's my sister's house." The other officer was already speaking to my in-laws waiting outside. My mother-in-law stood firm, explaining the situation and presenting her smartphone to the officer, likely showing the electronic proof of ownership I had sent in advance. They were serving as calm, reliable witnesses on behalf of the legitimate owner of the house, me. In the midst of my dark anger, this sight brought a flicker of warmth. Nicole's shaky excuses fell flat against the resolute officers. One officer silently stepped past her into the house. His gaze swept the living room, lingering on the scattered youths, then moved to the alcohol lined up on the kitchen counter. After surveying everything, he turned to Nicole, his voice low but firm. "The sister you mentioned, is her name Madison? And is she the rightful owner of this house? Nicole, unable to comprehend how the officer knew my name, could only nod slightly. At that moment, the second officer returned from outside the door. In his hand was my mother-in-law's smartphone. He held the screen up directly in front of Nicole's eyes and said in a chillingly calm tone, "The owner, Madison herself, reported you for trespassing and providing alcohol to minors. You had no permission from her. Isn't that correct?" Those words were a decisive declaration. The last color drained from Nicole's face, and the lies she had told crumbled pitifully in front of the law. She could no longer make excuses and could only shake her head weakly. One of the officers turned to everyone in the living room and loudly declared the party over. "Line up against the walls. If you have an ID, show it immediately. If you don't, have your parents' contact information ready." The young people obeyed, their expressions hopeless. The heat and excitement from just minutes ago had vanished completely, replaced by fear of their parents being contacted and regret over their foolish actions. Some began to cry while others glared at Nicole, blaming her for the chaos. The kingdom she had built for one night had collapsed far too easily. Through my smartphone screen, I watched it all unfold with rapt attention. Nicole presented her ID to the officers, had her age verified, and hung her head in shame. There was no sense of triumph, only a heavy certainty that this outcome was inevitable and that I had made the right decision. Wesley silently held my cold hand. I felt his warmth as an unspoken support, preparing me to face the long and harsh battle that was just beginning. Thanks to the officers' efficient handling, one by one, the youths disappeared from my new home. Some were picked up by their parents, others escorted to the back of police cars. Each one had their head hung low, showing that they never wanted to be involved in this place again. Eventually, in the wide living room, only 2 officers and Nicole, left alone, remained. The silence after the chaos highlighted the weight of her wrongdoing. One officer, clipboard in hand, delivered the final declaration to Nicole. The ceiling-mounted security camera's built-in microphone captured his calm voice clearly. "Nicole, you are being recorded today for multiple offenses. First, trespassing. You entered this house and hosted a party without the owner's permission. Second, supplying alcohol to minors. While you are underage yourself, you provided alcohol to other minors. This is a very serious offense." Though the officer's tone was measured, every word seemed to press heavily upon Nicole's future. "Today your parents will be contacted to pick you up, but don't think this ends here. A formal summons will be sent by the court. You, and some of those who are here today, will be required to appear in court upon hearing this." Nicole finally collapsed to her knees. No matter how spoiled she had been, the absolute wall of the law allowed no childish excuses. Through the screen, I could see her small frame trembling, but my heart did not waver. This was the consequence she had brought upon herself. Soon, one of the officers pulled out his smartphone. Madison, his voice, captured in the video feed, reached my ears with a slight delay through my phone. "The scene has been cleared. Your sister has been handed over to her parents. But the video records you transmitted online will serve as critical evidence in any future legal proceedings." Hearing those words, I simply replied quietly, "Thank you." The first act of this battle was over. When the call ended, the noise of the restaurant returned to my ears as reality. The food on the table in front of me had gone cold, untouched. I felt how much I had been saved by Wesley's grip on my hand, but I sensed that the true battle was only just beginning, and that sense quickly became reality. My smartphone vibrated again. The name displayed on the screen was Mom. Even before I answered, I knew a storm was coming. "Madison, what on earth do you think you're doing?" My mother's hysterical voice blasted through the speaker, and I instinctively pulled the phone slightly away from my ear. From the volume, I could tell she had just picked Nicole up from the police station. "How could you do something so terrible to your own sister? Call the police. If anything happens to her future, are you going to take responsibility?" Her rapid-fire accusations attempted to hit me, and I tried to respond calmly. "Mom, listen. Nicole didn't just trespass in my house. She was drinking alcohol with underage friends. This is a criminal act." But my words were drowned out by my mother's furious voice. "A criminal act? It was just a party. You're always like this, far too serious and rigid. Families are supposed to help each other, right?" I could hear my father speaking somewhere in the background, likely siding with her. To them, the facts of what Nicole had done were irrelevant. All that mattered was one thing. The family's reputation had been tarnished, and the one responsible, in their eyes, was me, the supposed victim. This was the role I had felt for years in this family. I was the punching bag called the responsible one. The twisted structure of this family had been thrust before me in its ugliest form. In that moment, something inside me quietly and completely snapped. After the call with my mother ended, my smartphone fell silent. But inside my head, my mother's shrill voice kept echoing. Families are supposed to help each other. Those words sounded like nothing but a curse to me. What they meant by helping each other was that I should sacrifice myself unilaterally and pretend that Nicole's wrongdoing had never happened. He said it calmly, signaled the waiter, settled the bill, and gently helped me to my feet. When we stepped outside and the cold night air hit my skin, I finally felt like I had returned to reality. As we got into the car, I murmured quietly, "Wesley, were your parents okay? They went through something terrible because of me." Wesley squeezed my hand and answered in a firm, steady voice, "There's nothing to worry about." After giving their statements to the police, they checked into a nearby hotel. They told me they fully support your decision, and that right now the best thing they can do is give you space so you don't have to carry any more stress. There was no hesitation in his voice, only the strength of a partner who was standing beside me. Those words erased the very last trace of hesitation left in my heart. That's right. I do have a family that truly cares about me. A new family. One that understands my worth and believes in doing what's right. I leaned back against the seat and let out a long breath when I lifted my head again. There were no tears left in my eyes, no emptiness, only a steel, hard resolve to do what needed to be done. "Thank you. Wesley, let's go home. There's something we need to take care of." But the place we headed for wasn't our rented apartment, it was the new house with the police's permission. The two of us crossed that threshold together for the first time. The inside reeked of alcohol and was littered with trash. But there was no time for sentimentality. We immediately opened our laptops and began assembling an official evidence package to submit to the police and our lawyer. From the security footage, we clipped audio of Nicole lying decisive moments of underage drinking and organizing. Everything chronologically, carefully labeled. Wesley compiled his parents' statements into a detailed time-stamped document. This was no longer an emotional family dispute. This was the beginning of a legal battle governed solely by cold, hard facts. Several days passed after that night. Wesley and I went to work during the day, then spent our evenings cleaning the new house and strengthening our evidence. We hired professional cleaners to deal with the mess. And while the smell of alcohol was finally gone, the scratches on the walls and stains on the floor vividly testified to that night's nightmare. We photographed every bit of damage and added the images, along with repair estimates, to the file we sent to our lawyer. It was a calm, methodical process to protect our future. Then, one weekday evening, when we returned to our old rental apartment, we saw familiar figures standing in front of the door. My parents and Nicole, standing behind them with her head lowered as if hiding in their shadows. They had come without warning, lying in wait for us. The moment my mother saw me, she rushed forward, her expression completely different from the phone call. She was wearing the face of a grieving mother. "Madison, please, just listen to us. Don't turn this into a court case. This is a family matter, isn't it?" My father followed Nicole. "Is deeply remorseful. If there was any damage, we pay for all of it. Just please withdraw the charges." On the surface, their words might have sounded loving, but in their eyes I saw only self-preservation and concern for appearances. I slowly shook my head. "It's too late." At those words, the sorrow vanished from my mother's face, replaced by anger. "What do you mean, too late?" As I tried to walk past them toward the door, my father stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "You're not going anywhere until we're done talking." My mother grabbed my arm tightly. "Listen to us, Madison." At that moment, Wesley, who had been silent until then, calmly stepped forward and placed himself between my father and me. "Please stop." His voice was low and controlled, but filled with unyielding resolve. "Please do not touch my wife." Caught off guard by Wesley's intervention, my parents fell silent. In that opening, I looked straight at them over Wesley's shoulder. "Move aside. If you continue, I'll record this too. How you're ambushing and intimidating us here. And hand it over to our lawyer. Do you really want to become accomplices to Nicole?" The word accomplices was like cold water poured over their rage. Still glaring at me, my father slowly stepped back and cleared the way. I opened the apartment door, with Wesley stepped inside and quietly closed it behind us. Without looking back, the shouts echoing down the hallway announced a complete severance between me and my old family. For the next few weeks, after confronting my parents, we focused entirely on communications with our lawyer. And on the day of the verdict, a call from the lawyer delivered news that utterly shattered Nicole's sweet illusions. Nicole has been found guilty. She will face fines, community service, an alcohol education program, license suspension, and a record of a misdemeanor. But that wasn't the end of it. The lawyer lowered their voice and continued, "There is another development. One of the parents of a minor who attended the party and consumed alcohol has filed a civil suit against Nicole. They are claiming high damages, arguing that she exposed their child to a dangerous environment." I instinctively gasped upon hearing this. This was a strike coming from a third party, entirely separate from the actions we had taken. Nicole's reckless behavior had created a new fire, and now it was spreading directly back to her. According to the lawyer, the video evidence we had submitted would serve as decisive proof in this civil case as well. Nicole was no longer just a family problem. She was now facing societal accountability. "What about her parents?" Wesley asked, and the lawyer sighed in exasperation. "They're now tied up with legal fees for her defense and responding to the upcoming civil case. The plaintiff's family is very wealthy and has hired a prominent law firm. There's no way they'll forgive the Nicole family. Honestly, this is just the beginning of their nightmare." Those words brought me an undeniable, dark satisfaction. This wasn't merely punishment for Nicole. It was also a reckoning for the parents who had raised her into a monster. Then, one day, my phone rang from a blocked number. I answered cautiously and heard Nicole's sobbing voice. "Please, Madison, help me, talk to them. Make them drop the lawsuit. I can't. The house, everything. It's all going to be gone." The moment I heard that voice, the events of that night flashed before my eyes. I saw my hard-earned dreams being trampled, and the faces of my parents who had always treated my sacrifices as a given, all under the excuse of, "because we're family." My heart did not move an inch. I said coldly, clearly, without hesitation, "No, that's the natural consequence of putting other people's children in danger. And it's no longer my concern. Whatever happens to you from here on out is none of my business." "What? But we're family." Her shrill cry slammed the final door on my heart. "No," I said, quietly delivering the last decisive word. "You've only ever used the word family as a shield to demand one-sided sacrifices from the day you tried to take everything from me. We are no longer family. You are a criminal who trespassed in my home. My real family consists of those who respect and support each other, the people standing with me now. My husband and his parents never call me again." I ended the call and blocked her number. Then I immediately upgraded our home security system to the highest level: physical walls, legal walls, and emotional walls. I built every barrier necessary to protect my new life. I later heard through the grapevine that they had sold the house, moved into a small apartment, and that my father was still working after retirement to cover the civil lawsuit damages, but I felt nothing. It was a story from a world that no longer concerned me. On the wall hung a photograph of Wesley, his parents, and me, all smiling. Last month we invited them over and finally held a true housewarming party. There were no superficial toasts, only genuine laughter and heartfelt congratulations. One weekend afternoon, I sat alone watching snow swirl in the garden through the living room window. I held a warm mug of coffee. Nothing special, just a quiet, peaceful moment. But for me, this ordinary day is a treasure I had fought a lifetime to earn. I am no longer the responsible eldest daughter living to meet someone else's expectations. I am a person who would never surrender ownership of her life to anyone. Wesley wrapped his arms around me from behind and rested his chin on my shoulder. "What are you looking at?" he asked gently. I smiled and answered, "Our future. This house is no longer just a building. It is my fortress, my sanctuary, the place where I would build happiness with my true family." The front door's state-of-the-art security system quietly monitored everything, and it protected me not only from physical intruders, but from the ghosts of my past.